You're listening to Girls with Grafts, a burn community podcast created by Phoenix Society for Burn Survivors, a leading nonprofit dedicated to supporting the burn community. In this podcast, we'll talk with burn survivors, share resources to help with supporting and improving burn recovery, and discuss how to prevent burn injuries. Here are your hosts, burn survivors and Phoenix Society's marketing team, Amber Wilcox and Rachel Kudlak.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Girls with Grafts. I am Rachel Kudlak. I'm one of the hosts of the show, and today, unfortunately, I will not be joined by my lovely co-host, Amber Wilcox. But as always, we have an amazing guest on the show today, and I'm really excited to have our guest here with me. But before I introduce her, let me just give a quick shout out to today's partner. So today's podcast is powered by Buses by the Beach. Buses by the Beach is a community of VW bus enthusiasts based in West Michigan. They come together to camp, host amazing events, and raise funds to support Phoenix Society. And mark your calendars for the 2026 bus benefit happening May 22nd through 25th in Trufen, Michigan. So that event is coming up soon. And if you're in the Michigan area or want to travel for Memorial Day, be sure to check out the Buses by the Beach event. So without further ado, today we are welcoming on Kelsay Parrott to the podcast. Kelsay is a burn survivor whose story began at the age of 4 when she was severely burned in a candle accident and was given less than a 5% chance to live. After enduring the physical trauma of her injuries, she later faced the unseen battle of the mental and emotional aftermath. Through finally receiving the support and care she needed, Kelsay began a journey of healing that transformed her pain into purpose. Today, she strives to be a beacon of hope for others walking through trauma and recovery. Kelsay holds a Master of Arts in Christian Ministry with a focus on trauma and disability. She regularly writes on her blog, Healing a Burned Soul, where she shares encouragement, faith, and insights from those navigating the complexities of trauma. She's also currently working toward launching a nonprofit organization dedicated to providing care and support for trauma survivors, caregivers, first responders, and others impacted by trauma. Kelsay's life motto is, if my pain can change one person's life, it was all worth it. Well, thank you so much, Kelsay, for joining me today. How are you?
Great. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. So we always like to start our episodes, just especially with our burn survivors, just asking them to tell us a little bit more about their burn injury and your journey as a survivor today.
Yeah. Like you said before, my story started when I was 4. I went to blow out a candle and the string of my sundress caught on fire. So I have went through the long battle of being a survivor for now about 23 years. Since then, I went through a lot of mental health struggles throughout. When you're a little kid and have to have surgery after surgery, you become the outsider. You become the kind of outcast. And that was my story for the longest time, until about high school, when I decided that it was time to really start focusing inward and healing. Doctors do a great job at healing the physical, but sometimes they kind of ignore the mental and emotional. And so I really quickly learned how to navigate that myself. I actually went to World Burn for the first time at 16, which at a 16, you can't have a hotel room by yourself. You can't just go across the country. And I signed us up without telling my mom until Phoenix Society called her and said, hey, you're going. So I was very dedicated to my own healing, which has transformed who I am. Being able to really put the pain aside and focus on the growth and the healing and the journey ahead has been huge. But yeah, my little 4-year-old self would have had no idea what the next 20 years had in store. And the survivor journey has just been the most complex, the most difficult, but the most beautiful I've ever walked through.
Mm-hmm. No, and thanks for sharing all of that with us, Kelsay. And I can obviously relate a lot to that, being a burn survivor at the age of 3 and just growing up and having to always go back to, the hospital every like summer break or winter break for those ongoing surgeries. So there's definitely different, growing pains as a child burn survivor. But, you talked about kind of that emotional and mental side of healing that you maybe at first didn't handle or take care of. So was that something that you kind of always were struggling with growing up, or maybe you just suppressed it and until you were a little bit older, then you started realizing you should maybe take care of that?
I think I really cared about what people thought of me too much. And so being in small town, I lived in small town Iowa my entire life. And so I really didn't think much of it. Everybody knows everyone. Everybody wants to be a part of everything. And so I just really wanted to fit in. I really wanted to just kind of put my past behind me. Everybody in my life was telling me that, you kind of get over it. And I know they were doing it out of love, but it still was hard to handle. It was hard to walk through this pain and suffering and not know that there's something better out there. I still went to like a burn camp every summer. I still did some burn survivor things, some connection, but still felt very isolated. Until it was actually after an attempt on my own life that I decided that there has to be a reason I'm here, and that reason can't just be to suffer. And that's when I kind of turned that corner of it's time to heal, it's time to become better. And then once I felt myself be better, I felt like I could then be better for other people more than, you can help other people in their journey if you're not willing to, take a look inside and heal yourself. And so once I could accept who I was, saw the beauty in my story, I felt way more confident to help others and to encourage others. There was times in my story where I didn't even want to talk about what happened to me. And now, somebody sees me in the store, I'm like, yes, what do you want to know? I'll tell you everything. So it's all about that mind shift change for me that just clicked.
Well, I definitely want to talk a little bit more about, camp and your Phoenix World Burn Congress experience, and maybe some of this will be answered with this next question, but what really helped shift that mindset for you? Was it just, it's different for everyone, of course. Was it just like one day you finally realized you needed to make it a change? Were you getting peer support? Were you, seeking out therapy? Or like what really helped you shift that mindset?
I think looking back, the thing that really helped me change that mind shift was getting involved and getting to know people. It's easy to create your own mind shift dynamic, your own ideas of what good looks like when it's just you, when you're isolated. But once I was able to meet people, I tell my friends this all the time when I see them again at World Burns or at events. Like when I first showed up in Indianapolis to the convention center, I was not who I am today. I was so scared. I didn't want to talk to people. I kind of was hoping that I could just put my head down the whole time. Even though I was the one who so badly wanted to go, I still wanted to have that control. And now if you try to talk to me at an event, I'm probably bouncing between 14 people. And so I really found myself needing to change my mindset through other people's connections. When you see people who've been through the same thing, or who have a similar story, or who have a story that's worse than yours, it's harder to play that woe is me card. So when I finally hit that change, and then more change came when I started becoming a counselor at camps, and I saw these little 7-year-olds running around like I would have, and they needed someone who wasn't hanging her head low and hiding her scars, but they need someone who could confidently wear them, or they're never going to confidently wear them. So I felt like I needed to see other people and know that I'm also a light to them. And that just transformed who I became.
No, I love that. And I can attest, I've seen you at Phoenixville Burn Congress bouncing around between 14 people, like you said. But, so tell us a little bit more about whether it's, maybe we can start with Burn Camp and kind of what that experience was like for you. It seems like you've had a lot of growth as like a young adult. And so I'm just kind of wondering, what was your Burn Camp experience like, and how did that kind of transform as you were becoming like an adolescent, young adult into who you are now?
I can't say enough amazing things about my Burn Camp. The unique part about the camp that I grew up going to in Iowa, Miracle Burn Camp, we actually, what I like to call, invade a YMCA camp. So there are burn survivors and non-burn survivors there. And that, I think, was transformative to me in the fact that I was meeting people who have never seen a survivor in their life. I was meeting people who come once a month, like once a year, to this camp specifically because they wanted to be there while we were there. And it changed my mindset of other people, because for 1 week a year, I could wear a tank top and a swimsuit and nobody was looking at me weird. Nobody cared what I looked like. And as I grew up, I kind of took it for granted. I was the worst homesick child you can about imagine. I would cry and scream and try to fake sick and try to get sent home, all because I was so used to my parents being there. Now that I look back, I now live across the country from my family, and I am doing my own thing. And I look back at that little 7 to 10-year-old who was begging to go home and kind of laugh because, she didn't know what was in front of her. But camp was one of those things that, it's one of the reasons when I am working on this nonprofit, I want it to be pivotal, because camps and retreats and programs just can awaken a side of us that we lost. Watching myself and these kids come who were told they never walk again, and then they're rock climbing, or they're, swimming, and they're on a boat, and they're doing all these things that normal kids can do, is just that transformational, amazing moment in their development. And it was mine too. Being able to see myself again. Camp was the first place I ever called myself beautiful, and the first place I found friends that didn't care. And so it was the most unique and amazing, 10, 15 years. This is actually my 20th year going to camp. That has just been amazing.
No, that's awesome. And I'm sure it's so fun for some of, your initial counselors who, when you were a kid going, who I'm sure are still there, who are now seeing you as a counselor and helping others. That's amazing that you've been, part of that group for so long. One question we get a lot from parents and caregivers, especially around camp, is, it's not just, tough for the parent to maybe send their kid to camp for the first time after a burn injury, But yes, kids, and I was the same way. I get homesick. What tips do you have for parents who are maybe wanting to send their kid to camp, or know that, they're ready to send their kid to camp, but maybe they're worried about them being homesick, or just what tips and advice would you give to them?
My first thing would be to trust them. Trust the camp. They have extensive research and study, and they, since I'm now on the counselor side of it, I know that we do training, that we do programs, that we, connect throughout the year. It's not just some random people who they grabbed off the street. Like, they know. And a lot of times it's, other survivors, it's firefighters, it's nurses who are taking your kid on. And kids are going to be homesick. It's just the nature of being a kid. It's the nature of leaving home for the first time or the 20th time. Homesickness is going to happen, but there's so much more out there for them that holding them back is just a disservice. Allowing them to go be a kid, allowing them to have that summer camp experience is one of the best things you can do. And if they're getting homesick or you're worried, like writing them a letter and making sure the staff has it that they can give to them throughout the week, or you can check in with the staff most of the time. Sometimes it takes us forever to get back to you, but that's usually just because we're having fun and enjoying ourselves, not because something bad's happening. And so it gives you a chance to, just let them be a kid. And then one of the things I always tell my parents that have siblings who aren't survivors, so they can't come, is take that week to do something special with the other kid. I have never had that conversation with my sister on what it meant that I went to camp and she didn't, but she went to other camps. She got to do other summer stuff. And so take that time to invest in your other children or your family, because it's hard to be a caretaker. And so taking a week off is actually a good thing for you as well as a parent, because you need that time to just decompress and know that your kid's safe and that they can still be a kid. And then you can have that moment to say, you know what, I'm not a caretaker this week. I'm just a mom. I'm just a wife. I'm not on 24/7.
No, that's great advice. I never really thought about it too, of like, I knew my sister wasn't at camp, obviously, but I love that suggestion of like with your other kids, like use that time to do something fun and special with them. Because obviously, siblings are also impacted by the burn injury and can often get, I don't know what the right word to like describe this as, but essentially, like, obviously the burn survivor child is going to get a lot of attention because they need it in the moment. And that's a totally fair and normal thing to happen. So I think I love that idea of maybe go do something fun with your other kids, and take a break for yourself. I also never thought about that. Like, oh yeah, when I was at camp, my parents probably did get a break, which was probably very nice for them. And I know you had mentioned about Phoenix World Burn Congress and the first time you signed up on your own with your mom. So I need to hear the full details of the story.
Yeah, so it's hilarious when I look back. I had just gotten on Facebook. I was connecting with a whole bunch of people in the burn community, and somebody had mentioned about coming to this event. And I was like, I've never even heard of the Phoenix Society, let alone what World Burn is. I was like, I am terrified. I'm not going to this event with a whole bunch of people that I don't know. And they convinced me after long conversations. I was convinced that this was a safe place. This was something I needed. And so I jumped online. I saw how much it was, and I knew we could not afford it. I knew I couldn't just like go to my parents and be like, hey, I need a couple $100 to sign up for this thing. Also, Mom, you're going to have to take a week off work and you're going to have to take me. And so I did my research. many, many sleepless nights of research, and I found the scholarships that the Phoenix Society offers for going to World Burn, and I applied. I used my best way of mimicking that I was an adult. I used my writing skills to write in it that, why I wanted to go and why we should be accepted. And I put my mom's phone number down as the contact. And they called one day while we're at home. I remember it so well because I was like in my room cleaning, and she gets a call, and they were like, "This is the Phoenix Society. We wanted to let you know you got the scholarship." And my mom's just like, "I don't know what you're talking about." And I was like, "Mom, wait. Don't say no. Don't say no. We're going to this thing." And so she's been beyond supportive my entire life. So I knew she'd be down, but I definitely went behind her back. And I was part of the You Belong program for those first 2 years of going to World Burn, but it was the craziest thing to have to tell her, like, "Hey, by the way, in a couple months, we're driving across the country and we're going to this event and you're not stopping me." And she was also scared because she never really had that support either. So, yeah, it was me kind of being a little sneaky behind the back. But now everybody who, sees me at World Burn or who knows me and knows my family, like, we can convince them. Then we convinced my dad a couple years later to come with us, which I think was super healing for all of us. But yeah, it was me I saw this thing that I thought would be amazing for me to do, and was like, I'm going to make it happen no matter what. And luckily it worked out really well. It could have definitely went the opposite way, but it worked out really, really well.
No, I love that. It's definitely something I probably would have done too, to be honest. And hey, it all worked out. And if you wouldn't have gotten the scholarship, your mom would have never known. So it would have been fine. No, that's great though. And one of my favorite things about the conference is obviously it is mainly for burn survivors, but it's obviously also for caregivers and loved ones and spouses and parents and siblings and all of the above. But I do always love watching other parents connect with other parents, other partners and spouses connect, and that like mutual understanding and connection. Obviously that happens for burn survivors, but I love the family members who finally get to come and feel like there's a space for them too. Because just to the point we were talking about camps, a caregiver's role is that, they often neglect their own self-care and their own healing. And I'm sure that was really powerful for your mom to go with you as well and kind of see your growth and then have the opportunity to, heal on her own as well.
Right. Yeah.
What, I know you come back to Phoenix World Burn Congress all the time. So what are some of your favorite parts about the event?
I love the connection that I get to make. Nothing beats like getting there and just standing in the lobby of the hotel and looking over and seeing people and getting to like run and just say hi to them. There's nothing that compares to that. I love getting to listen in on. I've never been a support group person. I honestly always fight back about going. This year I went to the last World Burn, and I didn't realize how much I needed it. I always kind of push back on them, but all my close friends were all going to the Hidden Burns support, and I was like, I don't think I need that. And then I got there and I left crying because I realized how much I was holding stuff back. I just love how there's so much like that you can do. You can choose your own adventure in a way. Like you can go to all the groups if you want. You can go to all the support stuff if you want, or you can spend time going out meeting and connecting with them, or you can spend time, just sitting in the hotel room if that's what you really want to do. Like there's so many opportunity that happens. I love getting to sit in on the talent show, and I always get convinced to do it every single year, even though I always say I'm not going to. Getting to just like see people live in their best life, and getting to meet new people. Like I'm a social butterfly. Anybody who knows me knows I'm a social butterfly. And so I've had people come up to me, end of the conference, and they go, "Wait, you've been here the whole time?" I was like, "Yeah, I've been here." And they're like, "I tried to talk to you the other day and then you disappeared." So I love that connection piece. I love the way that the entire community comes together in 1 week to just love and support each other. That goes beyond just 1 week.
For sure. No, definitely. I love seeing you at the talent show, and I think you'll have to do it again year after year. But yeah, I can't agree more. That connection, and I'm sure you relate to this too, just being so much further out from our burn injury. Sometimes, I don't feel like I need to go to a support group, but I do want to go out to eat with my friends and just like go to a restaurant with a group of like 5 burn survivors and not be the only one there for once is always like a fun feeling for me. And I know I've said this on the podcast before, but like just being at the hotel and like looking around and just seeing burn survivors everywhere, it's like we are the majority for once, and it's a fun feeling. It's just fun when you're not the only burn survivor around. Which can be really tough for a lot of people. And I know obviously Phoenix Row Burn Congress is one connection opportunity. I know you're connected online, but we have a lot of new burn survivors who often listen to the podcast who are, honestly probably a little bit terrified to go back out there and get connected. So I guess like, do you have any advice for them, or just if you want to talk a little bit about like the power of community that's really helped you? And
my first and always suggestion is to talk to your burn center. A lot of them have peer support trained people who can come in. Some of them even have people working for them who have been through the injuries. And I didn't have that growing up. I lived 2.5 hours from my burn center and then 4 hours from my burn center. And so I didn't even know that you could request someone to come talk to you. And just asking them like, "Hey, can I schedule a meeting? Or do you have someone my age to come talk to me?" But also, even if it's just online, just finding either the support chat that Phoenix does or an online Facebook group or whatever it is, just, posting that question. We all have them. I'm, 20 something years out from my injury, and I'm still having questions. I'm still going to the burn center for treatment. I'm still struggling at times. And I have a group of friends who I can just send a message to really, really fast and say, "Hey, what did you guys do for this?" Or, "Hey, can you give me a call? I need you." And just allowing, like, fear is normal, especially in trauma. Anybody, whether it's a burn injury, whether it's a car accident, whatever it's been for trauma, fear is the first response. It's how the body protects us. But being able to push past that fear is when we hit resilience. And when we can get into a mindset and into a space of resiliency after our injury, whether it comes 1 year, 6 months, a day. I'm always amazed when I talk to survivors and they're like, "Oh yeah, I was burned 2 weeks ago." And I was like, "Wait, how are you even out and about?" Like, I don't fathom this. And so to be able to just kind of push past it, and getting the mental health care and the peer support behind you. I know a lot of people I've talked to in the trauma world have done counseling, but they get into a counselor and they realize they're not good for them and they feel stuck. And just to know, like, it's okay to say no to a counselor and find someone new who understands trauma, who understands pain that you've been through, even if it takes you 10 or 15 different people. That's how I was in high school. There's like one that I was connected with, and I ended up not going after a year because I didn't feel like she was helping me at all. I would leave her office feeling worse about myself because I was pulling all this pain out, but she had no idea how to really help a long-term trauma. And so I wish I would have known that post, young self, not now, but just being willing and able after an injury to say, hey, I'm not alone. If you weren't injured, you would have community, you would have people, you would have friends. So there's nothing different other than you have some cool scars on your skin.
No, definitely. And that's such a good point about finding like the right counselor or therapist for you. I know, I went through that, and that wasn't even related to my burn injury, just, going to therapy as an adult and struggling to find like the right fit. And then, I wasn't going and wasn't consistent with it because I just couldn't find someone who I like was connected with, who I felt like I was making progress with. So it's such a good call, and I'm glad you brought that up. And especially when you are diving into heavy trauma like a burn injury. So, and just a, quick plug, like if you are struggling to find the right therapist for you, just reach out to Phoenix Society or join, our Facebook group. I know there's a bunch of different Facebook groups for burn survivors that can at least help and try to find, I know insurance is crazy in different states and all of that, but we'll try our best to help. And even just reaching out to a local burn center or a burn center in your state, even if it maybe wasn't the one you were treated at. Definitely. There are resources out there. It may take some time, but it is possible. I know I'm not very patient with that stuff. So I know I was on that struggle bus for a while.
Right.
I do want to just like switch gears a little bit because I know I want to talk about your life motto. And maybe we can, but before we do that, maybe we can talk a little bit just about, I know you have your master's, like I said in your bio, in Christian ministry with a focus on trauma and disability. So what kind of led you to that degree? Kind of how did you land there? What do you do today? Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so I went to college right after high school with every anticipation and every idea that I was going to become a motivational speaker. That was my dream goal. I had no other plans, which I feel like I'm a good communicator and speaker, but I didn't realize that like you don't really need a degree unless you're looking for like a communications thing. But I went to a little Christian school and I was diving into their like theater program. I was doing intercultural clubs. So I was working with all our international students. I was very involved. I am not a sit still person. And so I was like, I want to do more. And so I reached out to my advisor. My undergrad degree is in youth ministry. And I was like, hey, I want to do something else. Like I don't know what, but something. And he recommended chaplaincy. He was like, why don't you do some type of working in a hospital? What I didn't know at the time was he was actually a chaplain for a while. And I don't think he was on the same day I came in, but he was one of the chaplains at one of the burn centers like I had been treated at the hospital. So I was like, I don't know, that sounds cool, but I didn't want to work as just the burn person. Like I didn't want to work at a hospital that had a burn center and then every time a burn injury comes in, hey, you're on. And so I was like, okay, cool. Yeah, let's do it. I worked with our disability program in that college and fell in love with those students. And I knew for myself, being the outsider, the outcast my entire life and having some delays because of medications and surgeries, I was like, these people deserve to find the same loving care as I do. So I did that in undergrad. When I graduated, I had no idea what I wanted to do. My entire idea of chaplaincy kind of got thrown out the window when COVID came. But I found a school that I loved. I found a school it was actually in Holland, Michigan. I found a school, I loved it. The people there were amazing. They helped me. One was a mentor from years back. who really helped me dive into what it looks like to be a trauma chaplain and trauma survivor in that midst. And as I progressed through the work, I was like, this is what I want to do. I want to work post-trauma to help. If I wasn't going to be a speaker, I wanted to be a burn doctor. If I wasn't going to be a burn doctor, I wanted to be a counselor. Like everything was always revolving around people. And they're like, trauma is a specialty you can do. In school, I actually did a bunch of research, kind of developed some strategies for churches and ministry programs on how to help with trauma. I work with a few local organizations on that now, which is so powerful. My job right now is actually far from my degree. I actually work at a greenhouse. And so I'm customer service all day, and then I help with my church afterward. And so right now it's a lot of kind of that dual role, but I feel like it's opened up those doors of conversation and communication to work on writing books and work on my blog and work on connections with people. And so it's been amazing to see the doors open with that degree, just because it's not a normal degree. It's not like this is what everybody's getting. It's very specialized. And so I did a lot of hard research and study to get that, but it's been amazing seeing the growth in 2 years since having it.
Definitely. So how did, and maybe it didn't, but how did your faith play kind of a role in your healing and influence, your journey and now in that, your desire to help others?
So early on, I pushed away from my faith. I hated, I honestly could say like I hated religion, because I couldn't fathom the idea of someone who loves me hurting me. And so I pushed away. I still went to all of the church stuff. I was still that church kid, but I didn't really believe until after that that end of life attempt. And I realized that there has to be a purpose. There has to be a reason that I keep surviving everything that I have been doing, all the stupid stuff, all of the self-inflicted stuff. So I started diving in deeper then. The same time I was trying to heal myself from the burn injury, I was starting to heal myself through the pain of just the hurt from the church and the hurt from God himself. And it played a huge role in cultivating who I am now, especially when I look back on why I became a pastor, why I wanted to do trauma ministry. Is like, we see the worst of the worst, and the doctors can do everything to heal the body, the counselors can do everything to heal the mind, but who takes care of the soul? And so that's where like the blog came in with the title. That's where the books I've been working on came in. That's where all of my stuff has cultivated in my faith, just because if I can't find a higher purpose in what's happening to me, then I'm just going to shrivel up. I'm not going to be able to help anyone. And so it has been the biggest driving factor. And it's opened up so many doors. I'm not one, when I'm at events, I don't typically like kind of flaunt like, oh, I'm a pastor, like, let me know if you need anything. But it just came naturally this past, like World Burn this past year. I can't tell you how many people asked me about it. Without even prompting a conversation. I just was walking around and they asked me a question. Or when I'm home and, something happens to a friend or a family member and they're immediately messaging me and saying, hey, how can I get over this? What can I do? So it has opened up doors. It has shut doors. It has created this beautiful narrative, all because I decided that faith was my answer.
No, and I appreciate, your vulnerability and opening up about that. Because I know that's a really common thing that a lot of people in our community go through is, being being angry at God or being angry at whatever higher power you may believe in of, why did this happen? Like, how could this happen? And for some, for some, they really dive into the faith in the healing journey initially, and others, it's a longer period of time where so I kind of want to learn a little bit of, I read your life motto of, if my pain can change one person's life, it was all worth it. So how did you come up with that, or kind of when did you really start, like, I guess, like, living by that motto?
Yeah, that came a lot in college. Ever since the injury happened, I was a speaker. I was, as best as a 5-year-old can speak. I would go in front of schools and they would play a video and I would answer. But because I pushed so much of my story off, I really didn't know much about my own story. It was actually, I think, like 5 years ago, 4 years ago, I had come to a ministry program where I live now, and actually made peace with my injury. And we bought the exact copy of the dress I was injured in. I learned that it was not my fault. It was the dress's fault. Like, I recreated a narrative in my mind of it, which it's been 4 years since that happened, and everything's changed since then. But in college, I was asked to speak at a school, and the superintendent of that school that asked me was a friend of my dad's who remembers when I was injured. And he was like, I'd love for you to come speak. You can have the main time where you will speak to the entire school, and then you'll speak to each individual class about bullying. And I was like, okay, cool. A week later, I got a box of letters from these students, and they said, like, some of them were, I'm going to stop self-harming because I heard your story, or I was going to commit suicide. I'm not going to anymore. And I realized that me taking one day of my life to speak into these students potentially changed the trajectory of their life. So if any of my pain, all the years of crying because I was in pain physically and mentally, all the trauma and stress and fear, if I can impact one person, even just with, making them smile or helping them be encouraged, everything was worth it. It doesn't matter, how horrible my story is. I tried to live into it when I was younger, but I just was living my little life and didn't really think much of it. And so once I could finally kind of put a cap to it, I realized that that's exactly what I want to do. That's exactly how I'm living, is share my story, share what I've been through, be vulnerable with everything, because somebody else might be going through a similar thing and they need that little burst of energy to get past where they're at.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing. It is, and it is kind of crazy sometimes to think about how, sharing your story, whether it's on a podcast, to a class, to a work, or whatever it may be, or, I always also promote, like, again, Facebook groups. Like, we have one, there's so many out there, just showing up and answering a question that someone has, or posting a quick testimonial or something like that. Like, it is crazy how just taking a few minutes or even seconds to, like, share your story with others can really make a huge change.
Yeah.
And I know, we get comments on it, even like the podcast, of, like, people reach out and, tell us, like, how much, like, hearing other stories means so much to them. And it's, like, such a great compliment to receive, of, like, wow, we are making a difference in other people's lives. And yeah, I don't actually know a better compliment than, like, knowing that you've helped someone. So
Exactly.
and it's always great to kind of hear that feedback from others, and just get that from others.
Right.
And I know we are coming up on time, and we do have 2 final questions. Before I dive into those, I do just want you to quickly kind of touch on your blog, the nonprofit you're working on. I know those are kind of probably two big things that I'm throwing in at the end, but
Yeah.
I want to make sure you can talk about them and let folks know how they can stay in touch and, follow you and keep, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. So the blog is called Healing a Burned Soul, coming from that idea of who's going to be the one to heal the souls of the hurt. And so it's all online. I just search Healing a Burned Soul. It usually pops up. If not,
we'll have it linked in our show notes as well for folks.
Perfect. I try to post on there like once a week, sometimes more, sometimes less. It is highly, I try to incorporate non-Christian aspects as well as Christian aspects for those who maybe don't believe or are seeking faith, but I write a lot and I put a lot on there. There's blogs about my injury, but there's also about forgiveness and healing and restoration. I have a section in there for firefighters, kind of bringing out the statistics of burn injuries to encourage them in theirs, since the change of medical practices has made it hard for firefighters to connect. There's a merchandise shop in there where I put shirts and stickers and all kinds of things that I create in response. The nonprofit is going to be based on the same thing. I'm going to be calling it Healing a Burned Soul. I'm raising funds right now for it to become, so there's like shirts with phoenixes on them. That's all the proceeds of that goes towards 23% of the proceeds right now go towards the nonprofit to hopefully get up and going within about a year and a half is my goal. Once it's started, my goal is to be able to fundraise to send people to camps and World Burn and retreats, help pay for caregivers to get, spa days or even just hair appointments, whatever they need to also take self-care. And I'm really working on connecting with fire departments around the country with a badge and coin program and different things like that. So the website is active and live. It has been for, I think I have like 110 posts already on there. Everything's on, I share on Facebook, I share everywhere, but the link is the easiest way to just click it. There's an email button if anybody wants to just send an email for me to respond. I take whatever people request or need, or however they want to respond, or if they just have a question for me, I can respond right back and have a conversation with you that way.
That's amazing. And like I said, we'll make sure we have your blog and all of that information linked in our show notes for folks who want to get connected. So, and I'll definitely have to check out your blog as well. So yeah, like I said, we'll have those linked below. And like I said, I know we are coming up on our time, so I'm going to ask our two final questions. Amber isn't here today, but I'm going to ask her. She had a fun question this season. So her question is, if the season of your life had a soundtrack or a song, what would it sound like? Or what would that song be?
Ooh, that's a hard one. The song would definitely be something like vintage, like 1920s to 30s, like swing dance style. I feel like I'm in this season of great changes. Not only like sharing my story this way, but awards banquets and doing all these things. I'm actually connecting more with a reenactment group and doing different things like that. So I feel like it would be this like vintage, like Great Gatsby style music. Me just bopping around everywhere.
That's so fun. And I got the visual perfectly. So you did a great job describing that. But no, that's a fun soundtrack theme for you right now. I love that. So with that said, it is time for our final question, which is our Phoenix Partner question today, sponsored by Buses by the Beach. So their question is, what is one message you hope sticks with our listeners after today?
I would hope that people see that their injury doesn't define who they are, but can be a catalyst to who they want to be. It doesn't have to just be this happened to me, so I'm going to get over it, but to be a catalyst for change. And I'd hope that they would hear what I said and just take hope that doesn't matter where in the journey you are in healing, but that there is hope, there is joy, there is peace that can come. And if you're willing to take it on, great things can happen.
Amazing. I love that. I just wrote that down. Of your injury doesn't have to define, I think you said you, but it can be a catalyst for change. I think that's so powerful. So thank you so much, Kelsay. It was a pleasure having you on the show. Like I said, I know I've seen you and I've talked to you at World Burn before, but we've never had a chance to really sit down like this. So today was so much fun, and I really appreciate you taking the time to record with me.
Yes, thank you so much. I had so much fun.
Awesome. Well, thank you, listeners. Thank you, Kelsay, and we will see you in the next episode.
Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of Girls with Grafts. If you are enjoying this content, please feel free to rate, subscribe, and leave a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. This helps others find the show, and we greatly appreciate it. Thanks again for listening, and we'll catch you in the next episode.